Hello, Mountaineers and Molemen. My name is TB Skyn, and Malphite has lore now. That's unusual. Malphite has lore, and he didn't really used to have lore. In fact, Malphite has never really had any lore. The most lore Malphite has ever had in the past was before the 2014 lore retcon, where he sort of had a bio. Like, he's like the vaguest possible. Here's a rock monster, and there's like a. He came from another dimension, I guess, and now he's in the League of Legends. Don't think about it too hard. And Riot never really did anything with him. To my knowledge, he's never really had any lore development. He's never had any short stories, any comics, any appearances in official media, really. And that made him a little bit of a. He was a little bit of a meme for that, as the sort of just the forgotten champion that no one ever did anything with. I except very occasionally give him skins. And that continued especially past the 2014 lore retcon, where his very little lore became absolutely literally no lore whatsoever. Malphite has, for a very long time, not really had any kind of a personal quest or a theme or any kind of idea going on with him. He doesn't really explore any particular concept. He doesn't really illuminate any particular facet of the world of Runeterra, because he was always conceptualized as a creature from another dimension, essentially an alien who doesn't really have anything to say about the planet that he's landing on. So he's always been kind of a cipher, kind of a nondescript nothing burger of a character. So has the new lore that he's received managed to fix that? Well, that's what we're going to be taking a look at in the video today. But before we do, can I just point out that Malphite has one of the best splash arts in League of Legends? Not that it's nicely drawn and everything, but there's two things about this splash art that makes me love it more than a lot of other splash art in League of Legends. And the first thing is this guy. This guy right here, who, upon being confronted with a kaiju-sized rock monster, like the literal side of a mountain charging at him across a field, smashing the ground, tearing up the world as he goes, makes the conscious decision, for whatever reason, to go, I know what will stop this monster, a small arrow that is on fire. Surely I shall be crowned the hero of the day when I slay the mighty beast with my arrow, which is on fire, which is famously effective against rock. Like, I love how confident he is. He's just like pulling it back and he's aiming like, yeah, this is the thing that's gonna do it. But he's not my favorite thing about the splash art. My favorite thing about the splash art is these two guys. These two guys with like, they've got this little rope just kind of slung over his arm, and they're hanging off it like they're hanging on, like as though it's gonna slow him down. Like, this guy's like, hey, hang on, Jimmy Bob, this guy's gonna slow down in just a minute. Are you sure about that, Timmy? Yeah, I used to wrangle hogs all the time back on the farm. He's gonna tucker out in just a sec, I swear to God. It's like a string just hanging there. You can see I love the enthusiasm of these guys. Like, these Noxian soldiers, like, but you see they've got little ropes that are just sort of being torn apart in the background. They thought that was gonna do something. They thought they were gonna, like, what, hold him down? It's like some dude charging at Godzilla with a penknife. I just love it. Like, it's so stupid and silly, and I love it so much because it does say something about the attitude of the Noxian Empire, doesn't it? Like, yeah, okay, literal rock golem size of a mountain, we can handle that, surely. So that's pretty good, but that's not what we're here to talk about, actually. We're here to talk about his lore, before I get all bent up and laughing at his splash art. We're here to talk about his lore, and before we talk about the new lore, it might be helpful to talk about the old lore, also because it gives us a little bit of insight into the development of League of Legends lore as a whole, because in the early days, well, let's just say League of Legends from the start was never really a game that was much about its lore. So, this is the totality of Malphite's original lore state, dated October 23rd, 2009. That's close to 10 years ago at this point. He's a very early champion in the game, obviously. And basically it goes that there's a dimension which is like the rock dimension. Just like everything's super rocky in there, everything's part of a whole, it's all cool. Malphite, he's there because order is good. That's what he's decided, or not decided because he doesn't think. And then one day, a dimensional rift opens and he's summoned across the cosmos to the world Runeterra. You know how in isekai anime, the thing is like, oh, we have a protagonist and oh, now he dies hit by a truck and he's dead. Oh, guess he has to go to the other world now. Like that whole thing. Basically, it's this. Malphite is the star of his own isekai anime. He goes to Runeterra because, I don't know, dimensional rift something something. And the world he comes from is basically described as a kind of hive mind, a place where everybody is mentally connected to each other, and he lives in this world of perfect order. And his reaction upon being kidnapped, which is the thing that's happened, like sorcerers from another dimension have just stolen him from his life, his existence, everything he knows. And they're like, hey, could you help us out? We've got all this nasty chaos in our world, and we totally want to get rid of it. And we thought maybe if we used magic to force someone into our dimension, they would be super cool about it and be like, yeah, sure, I'll help you deal with all the chaos in your world. And it turns out Malphite, yeah, he's fine with it. He's just like, yeah, this seems legit. I guess I'll help them do their thing. Who cares about going back to the only world I have ever known? So yeah, there's that. That's the very, very early lore. It's relatively quickly replaced with a somewhat more fleshed out version of the same basic story. But the thing I love about this is that fleshing out Malphite's story further actually just kind of makes it worse, because the first thing they do is they flesh out the description of his original world. Like, the monolith is the essence of all creation, and its denizens are but singular pieces of it. It is beautiful in its symmetry and in its almost complete lack of uncertainty. The rocky beings that live there know their place and work to fulfill their duties to the fullest extent, functioning almost as a superorganism or hive. Malphite has always strived to live up to his full potential as his own personal part of the whole, serving the role of a distinguished creature questing to enforce his with people's flawless vision of order, right? They flesh out the world that he came from, which only makes it more horrifying to think, like, being summoned into a portal and taken away from that, away from a world where you have only ever known order, into a world that's full of chaos. How traumatizing, theoretically, should that not be? But no, one day, without warning, a dimensional rift opened and he's brought to Runeterra. But where the original lore has the insight to go, hey, we need someone, a champion, to fight for us, to help us fight against the chaos of this world, which is the kind of, okay, you can see how that appeals to Malphite, right? Like, we've got all this chaos going on, maybe you could make order happen instead of that. You can kind of see where he might be coming from when he decides to help them. But here it's like, he's summoned to fight in the League of Legends, right? So these sorcerers are like, they tear this creature from the only dimension it has ever known and bring it into a world of chaos that is, like, hateful to its entire psychology and existence. Are like, hey, would you like to die over and over and over again in this blood sport that we watch for fun? Because order, that you can do some order. I don't know, we just wanted a champion who could play in our bloody sports game that we do to solve the political conflicts in our world. And still, for whatever reason, Malphite, instead of being like, I'm going to crush you into a fine powder if you don't return me to the world where I was born, he's like, yeah, sure, I don't know, I don't have anything better to do, who cares, I don't care about going home, let's do blood sports. So, yeah. And then the 2014 lore retcon hits, and the first thing they do is just remove the League of Legends from the equation, which is a good move because, again, it's a blood sport. Why would he fight in it? And then, well, we get this. And here you can kind of see them preparing for the lore state that they're going to give him eventually in the current state of the lore, where they've both basically just torn everything away. None of that other dimension stuff. He's birthed as a servitor shard to an otherworldly obelisk known as the Monolith, right? He used his tremendous elemental strength to maintain and protect his progenitor, but ultimately failed, the only survivor of the destruction that followed. Malphite now endures Runeterra's soft folk and their fluid temperaments while struggling to find a new role worthy of the last of his kind. Right, so here we've taken away the otherworldly dimension thing. He's not being summoned anymore. He's a rock creature, and then some bad thing happened, and now he's the only rock creature, so don't ask why there aren't any other ones of him. He's just a unique one. He's basically got a Rammus origin, which leads us on finally to the new lore state. And the first thing you'll notice is that there isn't that much of it. It's a massive creature of living stone. Malphite was born from the heart of the great Ixtali construct known as the Monolith. He has studied the elemental balance of Runeterra for thousands of years, using his tremendous strength to maintain order in a frequently chaotic world. Now, roused all too often from his slumbers, Malphite endures the fluid temperaments of mortals while struggling to find a cause worthy of the last of his kind. And here's where I think Riot's writers did something very clever. They've just revealed the Ixtal faction, right? Like Kiana, their secret palaces in the jungle, all that stuff. A region which their whole thing is that they're known for being super good at elemental magic. Makes sense, then, to take the rock golem, who's essentially an earth elemental, and tie him to that region. That's a clever thing to do. But they've also changed a couple of other things. First of all, Malphite is born still from the Monolith, right? He's a shard who's born from the heart of this thing called the Monolith. I don't know why my voice is so rough tonight. I keep clearing my throat. But it's the Ixtali construct. So basically, much in the same way that Galio was made by the Demacians, Malphite is made by the Ixtali, which means he has, like, you can conceivably incorporate him into the political stories that rule the Ixtali region. Like, he would have some reason to be involved if there's a war between Ixtal and Piltover. Sure, there's a reason for Malphite to show up, which they're already kind of hinting at a little bit with the short story that we're going to be looking at in just a second. So that's quite clever, because one of the other problems with Malphite is that he had literally no reason to be involved with any conflict ever in his old lore state, because, like, again, his only motivation for doing any goddamn thing in the old lore state was that for whatever reason he doesn't like chaos magic, right? But it's like, so the only way to get him involved in any story is to make sure there's a chaos magic wielder there who can cause him to act against them. Which is like, how do you get him involved in the Demacia conflict? How do you get him involved with any of the ongoing storylines on Runeterra? Really freaking difficult, because he's not aligned to any region. So, aligning him to Ixtal is a clever way to do things. It does raise questions about the Monolith. Like, Malphite was born from the heart of the great Ixtali construct known as the Monolith. Because the Monolith, seems like it says that he's the last of his kind, right? So the Monolith was destroyed, maybe? Or it just didn't give birth to anything else? But it raises the possibility and the opportunity for Riot to go, hey, you know what? We could do a water elemental now, who's born from the construct known as the Monolith in the same way that Malphite is. That would be cool. Like, it opens the opportunity to have more creatures along the same line of concepts as Malphite. Are they actually going to do that? Well, you know, it's doubtful, because Riot is bad at following up on everything. But, you know, it's the kind of thing that you can vaguely hope for if you're an optimistic person, which I am to my cost. Anyway, the story is Roots of a Poisoned Tree by Graham McNeil. And let's see if I can't get that. No, can't get the illustration to appear on its own. Oh well, it'll be in the thumbnail. Which is a lovely illustration. I love the illustrations that they do for the stories that they put out. Like, just look at the use of color and lighting and the way that they framed Malphite's face against the explorers and stuff like that. Really well done. And the story in general, by the way, is quite well written. I like the world building that's going on in this story. One of the things that this story introduces to the League of Legends universe, for example, is accents. We've got these Sawnite miners who have their entire own brogue, basically. Like, they have their entire own dialect, which is occasionally translated in the story. And Necrit has done a full read-through of this particular story, so if you want all the details, go to his video, link in the description. But I really do like that. Like, they put a bunch of work into making the region start to feel more culturally distinct than they have for a very long time. League of Legends has always kind of been plagued by sort of what's called the Planet of Hats syndrome. And that's basically, you know how in Star Trek they would go to a planet, like an entire planet the size of the Earth, or maybe even bigger, but they'd go there and they'd be like, there would be like one culture there. One culture which does like one thing, and they have like one particular set of problems, and there's really nothing to them beyond the one theme that this particular episode of the show wanted to explore. That was always like the Star Trek thing. That's Planet of Hats, right? You go to a planet, everybody's wearing the same hat. And that's always been kind of the problem with Runeterra and League of Legends in general, is that you go to Demacia and it's all knights in shining armor and like, oh, we'll protect the king and we're loyal to the throne and Javan and all that stuff. And you go to Noxus and it's all, ooh, backstabbers and assassins and like soldiers, we're the evil fantasy bad guys. And you go to Son and it's just nothing but pollution and chemicals and blah blah blah, and you go to Piltover and it's nothing but like Hextech and stuff. It's all very one note. Like each region has like one cultural aspect to it, which is something they've been trying to kind of work on a little bit more, where you get this idea of Son as a place that has, yes, street kids like Echo, you have mad scientists like Victor, and you have ordinary working class squares, basically like people who work in the mines and do menial manual labor versus the chem barons and all that stuff. Like, so there's more cultural diversity basically within each region. And that's something I like, and adding a local regional accent is a good idea there. But once again, with Riot, they're bad at following up on it. I would really like them to also have this accent in other stories that are set in Son and Piltover. Anyway, as the story goes, Shurai is a assayer, like a mine assayer, someone who like evaluates mines and tries to figure out what's going on with the rock and why is it difficult to drill through this bit and that bit. And she's gone to a Son mine in order to make sure that stuff is going the way it should. And the local miners are like, oh, we're not really sure about you. You're from Piltover. You can't be super smart, because there's this cultural tension between Piltover and Son. And she's like, no, I'm super good at rocks. I know all of the rock stuff. And she kind of proves that she's good at the rock stuff. And there's this little sense of respect being developed between these people from very different cultures. Again, excellent world building. How does any of this relate to Malphite? Well, he shows up like here, a good ways into the story. Basically, they've hit on a little vein of a thing that they don't know what the hell it is. They can't drill through it, and then they go, okay, I guess we're gonna blow it up with explosives, and Malphite is like,
I wouldn't do that if I were you.
And it turns out the thing that they've run into in the mine is Malphite. Malphite is down there, the size of a mountain, buried underground, and what he's doing there is the interesting part of the story, because here's where we get to the idea of Malphite having a purpose in the world, a quest, a thing he wants to do, something that he spends his time doing that can become the central locus of conflicts and interactions with other characters.
This rock is infested. Creatures move within it, beautiful in their own way, but chaotic. You should not break this rock. It will end badly for you.
Basically, Malphite has identified that the chemicals and just the, well, not the chemicals, but the presence of a void rift beneath Son, which, by the way, this is a new thing. A void rift beneath Son is kind of a big deal. Has identified a void rift beneath Son, and he has decided to crush it, basically. Like, he's basically covering it up with his entire body and crushing it. And he's doing that because the void is bad. It infests and poisons the natural order of the world, and he has decided that is bad. They thread the crust of the world like the roots of a poison tree. I'm not going to do the voice the whole time. I have them trapped within my body. I will crush these ones, but more will come, so be wary of delving too deep. And I like this a lot. I like it a lot that Malphite now has a quest. He's related to one of the major storylines that are going on in Runeterra. He has a reason now to fight against the Void, which is one of the major world-spanning threats that League of Legends has kind of been building up for a good long while now. We have the primary Void Rift in the Freljord, which is having a big influence on the society up there. Like, basically, Lyssandra's whole deal is that she's manipulating the Freljord so that she can survive for as long as possible against the coming of the Void, who she helped enter the Freljord in the first place. Like, that whole thing is going on. Then we have the Void Rift in the sea, underneath where Nami lives, which is sort of threatening to start swallowing up the oceans and stuff like that. And which Nami is, her quest as a champion is trying to find something to stop that Void Rift from consuming her people. And then we have the Void Rift in Ikathia, which is through the south of Shurima, which is also threatening to spread if nothing is done to keep it in check. And that sort of kind of seems to tie in a little bit with the World Runes, who might turn out to be the super weapon that we need to destroy the Void when the final battle comes. But I like that they're tying Malphite into this particular conflict as well, that Malphite would have a reason to rise from the earth and fight the Void when the grand big final battle of Runeterra versus the Void eventually has to happen. It gives him something to work towards, and it gives him a reason to interact with other champions who also have dealings with the Void, and it gives him the reason to interact with other champions just in general, either to say, hey, there's a bunch of Void creatures underneath your feet, you should be careful, maybe, or to warn them, or to be in conflict with them. Like some Noxian wants to dig a mine somewhere, and Malphite shows up, and he gets into a conflict with, I don't know, Scion, maybe. Like, has a fight with Scion because he wants them to stop Noxus from building a mine, and Noxus doesn't really listen to reason. That kind of thing. It gives him a place in the world that gives him a reason to be a part of what's going on. So, yeah, to get to the point of the video, the thing I actually wanted to say, Malphite has the best splash art in League of Legends. That's the whole point of the video. That's the thing I want. No, the point of the video is they've done a good job of integrating a character who was famously very difficult for League of Legends lore to accommodate. Like, because of the whole he was from another dimension, and he's a rock monster, and there aren't any other rock monsters, and he doesn't really fit in with any region, he was always the problem child of League of Legends because he was sort of hastily added to the game without a lot of forethought, and nobody could ever find anything to do with him since then that would give him a place. Riot have managed to square that particular circle. Now, again, with Riot, the thing is always, will they actually follow up? And they've been getting better at it with the lore in recent years, I will give them that. But I will be curious to see the next time Malphite gets any kind of a lore update, and whether his bio is ever going to be more than just this one paragraph. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, you should feel extremely free to hit the like button, and the comment button, and the subscribe button, and all the other YouTube buttons that make my channel stay alive. And if you want to support the channel and the work that I do more directly, well, you can head on over to Patreon, where there's like subscription tiers, and you can do a thing where you get some rewards, and you get to vote on videos every once in a while, and you know, stuff like that. Ask me questions for a Q&A video, those kinds of things. Or if you sign up for the highest level, you can request a video all for yourself of a topic that you want, which someone actually did. I was never expecting anyone to do that, but it happened. So you can do that. And if you don't want to sign up for a monthly subscription, there's also a couple of tip jars in my description down below that you can use to give me a one-time tip to say, hey, you laughed about Malphite's splash art at the start of this video. For some reason, that has made me want to give you money. Here you go. Your hypnotic voice has wielded mystic influence over. Like, that's an option if you want to be weird like that. Then you can do that. And as I say at the end of all my videos these days, $1 to a content creator like me means the same as literally 1,000 or more views on a video. Like, it has a much bigger impact than you imagine. So whether it's me or whether it's someone else, if there are content creators whose work you enjoy, please consider supporting them directly, because even small donations add up to a lot more than you think. Of course, if you can't, or you just don't want to, do any of that direct support, that's completely okay as well. I'm just happy that you have watched the video this far. If you haven't enjoyed the video, well, there's a dislike button down below, and you can click on it, and I'm sure that there won't be horrifying monstrosities from beyond the stars lurking behind them. Behind you, in the shadows, right to your left, out of the corner of your eye, lurking there, waiting. That's probably not gonna happen. It's probably gonna be fine. I'm probably just imagining it. Thank you very much for watching.